Okay, guys, so next is identifying and preventing lust. Okay, so we're going to be diving into probably one of the most powerful mindset principles. Okay, so we looked at the mountain mindset, which is a foundational thing you want to kind of install into your subconscious mind, right? But once you've got that in your mind, you don't really need to do much with it. Okay, you've got it, you've got the awareness. Okay, mountain mindset, cool, sweet. This is slightly different. This has a slightly different layer to it where you have to be more conscious to utilize it, right? And this image will make a little bit more sense in a minute once I break this down. But I will say this is one of the most powerful things you can do to overcome porn and masturbation and lust as a whole. Okay, so we're going to dive into this. I think it'll be very insightful. So guys, I like to call it the Firestarter analogy. Okay, now you have to think of your mind as like kindling, right? As you can see here, every sexual thought or trigger that you see acts like sparks, right? Acts like sparks landing on this kindling. So some of these sparks, if you're making a fire in the woods and you're striking, these sparks, some of them will turn into embers, right? Some of them are going to land and they're going to turn into a little hot ember. And when you make a fire, right, if you want that fire to grow, you have to give that ember, you have to blow on it a little bit. You have to give it air. You have to give it your attention. And then eventually it will catch into a flame, okay? And the more, essentially your mind is operating in the same way, okay? So you have to think of your mind as the kindling, and the sexual thoughts or triggers are these sparks. And every now and then, one of those sexual thoughts is going to land onto your mind. And if you give it your attention, right? If you start feeding it your attention, it's going to grow. It's going to turn into a flame, okay? And that's the thing, right? And the more thought energy you give it, the more attention you give it, the more it's going to grow. And at a certain level, it's like the more you think about it, the more those images are rolling through your head. It's like you're adding wood to the fire. At a certain level, that fire will become so big metaphorically that you just won't be able to put it out, okay? And yeah, the key is, the thing is guys think, oh, okay, like I can think about this. They're doing well. They're like 5 to 10 days into semen retention, and they feel that sexual energy come up, and they go, oh yeah, like I'm start thinking about this thought, but it's okay because I'm only thinking, right? Nothing bad's gonna happen. But what they don't realize, and what you have to realize, is you don't just go from being in a normal state to wanting to relapse just like that. Okay, it's a state. It's a gradual process that it increases over time. Like a one thought leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and eventually you start building up enough desire that all of a sudden now you want to go and relapse. Okay, the trick here is to treat your mind just like that fire, right? The people that are relapsing are giving that fire too much of their attention, and all of a sudden they can't put it out. It gets to a point where it can't be put out. When you do make that first strike, that first ember can be put out just like that. It would be so easy to put out a tiny little ember. It's so hard to put out a big fire, right? And you have to treat your mind exactly the same. So as soon as a thought comes in, you have to cut it off before it even has a chance to manifest, before it even has a chance to grow, before it even has a chance to turn into a flame. You have to cut that thought off. And that's simply down to your awareness, right? As that thought comes in, you just have to reject it, right? If we go back onto the other image, you'll see these arrows. These arrows are representing lustful thoughts. This is your mind. You have to create a protective barrier that doesn't allow these thoughts to grow, right? You doesn't allow these thoughts to turn into stronger thoughts, because that's what's going to lead you to relapse. And, you can cut a thought off when it is just an ember. And yeah, it wouldn't put you in that lustfully dominant headspace, right? If you can cut it off before it has a chance to grow, you cut off that lustful state of mind. And the key is to not allow thoughts to grow in your mind, right? Cut them off as early as possible when they're at their weakest, right? That is the key. That is what you have to do. And it's very simple, right? It sounds very simple, but this is a concept now. You have an awareness now, because before most guys aren't aware of their thoughts. They're not thinking about these things, right? You need to have a level of awareness where like I said, you're not allowing these thoughts into your mind. And if you can do this over a prolonged period of time, you can't relapse. You see what I'm saying? You just can't. It's almost impossible, right? Because every single time you do, it's because you've let these thoughts in, right? You've let them grow inside of you, and as a result, you end up relapsing. Okay, so that's a concept you can take on board. And I've seen one of my clients who had 20 years of porn addiction, okay, quit in 6 months for good. Using, and this, he said this was one of the key things that he was doing over that period of time. Now, this takes discipline, this takes self-awareness, this takes being consciously aware. If you're not consciously aware, you're just gonna not use this as well, right? Those thoughts are going to get the better of you, and that's a big factor of this whole process. Is you need to be switched on every single day. You need to put effort in, right? Just like a plane on a runway, it uses the most energy when it's taking off, right? Once it's off the ground, it's a lot easier, and that's kind of the process we're in. So, this first month of doing semen retention, you're really going to have to be aware. You're going to have to really push yourself into a new state of mind and a new state of consciousness, through your daily habits, through your daily actions. And this is one of the actions you can take that's going to have a massive amount of leverage in preventing you from relapsing. Okay, guys. So I hope that all makes sense. And that is the Firestarter analogy.